Hello everyone, this is Hamza from Chem with Hamza. Today we are going to study the experiment and explanation, specifically the experimental method. As a start, let's take an overview of the scientific method, starting with observation, then hypothesis formulation, then experimentation, law development, and finally forming a theory. Now this is the scientific method process. These are the points we are going to go through in order to finally have a theory. So let's start exploring each one of these steps. Let's start with the word observation, which is one of the most important steps in science. It is a statement based on information gathered through senses or measuring instruments. Now in chemistry, observations are used to describe and record phenomena, and they form foundation for developing a hypothesis, which we are going to study later today, and conducting an experiment, which we are going to study later today as well. Now, for example, what do we mean by observation? If you mix two clear liquids and the solution turns blue or changes color, this is an observation. You observed the color has changed. These observations are not guesses. They are recorded facts that you seen by your eyes or you measured using some kind of instruments. Now the second step, which is hypothesis, is a tentative explanation of some regularity of nature. So basically, it is a possible explanation that we can test. It is a testable explanation. Like, if the temperature of a reaction increases, then the reaction rate will also increase. So this hypothesis, we can test it using experiment. Experiment is an observation of natural phenomena carried out in controlled manner, so that the result can be duplicated, rational conclusion can be made. Now, the first step we've done was observation. Observation. Then, the second step, observation. So basically, we have observed the color change of two liquids when they mixed. Then, we've done a hypothesis. Hypothesis, which we assumed that when we mixed the first liquid with the second liquid, the color changed because the first liquid was an acid and the second liquid was, for example, a base. Then the third step, which is experiment. So basically, we did an experiment in order to test the hypothesis we've made in the previous step. Now this experiment will be controlled in controlled manner, so there is some variables we need to control in order to do the experiment, and this experiment should be duplicated or can be duplicated and should give us a rational conclusion that we can make. The rational conclusion will come from the duplication thing. Like, for example, if you've done an experiment and this experiment you've done it once, the data will come is not certain. Therefore, you need to repeat the experiment twice, 3 times, 4 times, etc. Now, the repetition of this experiment will give you credibility, because if you've done the experiment like 5 times and all the 5 times gave almost the same data, you are good. Your data is good and they are repeatable. While if the experiments done shows no similarity in the data, this means that this experiment is not credible. And in order to have the same data, you need to have a controlled experiment. Like, for example, controlling variables is essential to ensure repeatability and reliable results. These variables include factors such as temperature, so you need to control the temperature in order to gain or to have the same output, and the amount of substance used in the experiment needs to have the same amounts of substance. Then the fourth step is to formulate a law. Now, law is a concise statement or mathematical equation about a fundamental relationship or regularity of nature. So, for example, the law of conservation of mass, which we are going to study later, which says that the mass or quantity of a matter remains constant during any chemical change. So this is an example of law formulation. Finally, we will develop a theory which is a tested explanation of basic natural phenomena. Now, for example, the atomic theory states that all matter is composed of tiny particles called atoms, which cannot be created or destroyed in a chemical reaction. So basically, this theory came from the sequence of scientific method, which is started by observation, then with a hypothesis formation, then experiment, then a law formation. Finally, we came out with this theory. Thank you for watching the video. Please like, subscribe, and share the video. And see you soon.